Today, we're going to talk about a hero you've probably never heard of. And her story, well, it's one of incredible defiance that still feels incredibly powerful, even all these years later.
So let's start with a number, 73. That's how old she was. Not some young, fiery revolutionary, not a soldier, a 73-year-old woman.
And here's another number for you. 3. That's how many bullets the British police fired into her body.
But get this, even after being shot 3 times, she never, ever dropped the Indian flag she was carrying. That single act of defiance is exactly why we need to tell her story. So who was this woman? To really understand that kind of sacrifice, you have to understand where she came from. Because hers is the story of a truly unlikely hero.
Matangini Hazra wasn't royalty. She definitely wasn't a politician or some high-ranking general. She was a peasant from a tiny village, a widow with no children, and she'd never had any formal schooling or status to her name. By all the usual ways we measure things, she was someone on the absolute margins of society.
But that's what makes this so powerful, isn't it? Her power didn't come from a title or from money. It came from this fire inside her, a deep belief in freedom that turned an ordinary woman into someone absolutely extraordinary.
Now, this fire didn't just appear out of nowhere. To really get what she did, we need to understand the world she was stepping into, a whole nation that was right on the edge of a final, desperate stand.
The year was 1942. The Quit India movement had just kicked off. And this wasn't just another protest. This was it. A nationwide scream for the British to finally leave. The air was just thick with tension, with hope, and honestly, with a whole lot of danger. This was the final push.
So how did the British react? Well, they came down hard. They invoked something called Section 144, which basically banned all public gatherings. All of them. That meant that just walking down the street together, holding a flag, that was now an illegal act, and it could be met with force.
So you have this incredibly charged atmosphere, the full power of the British Empire cracking down on any sign of dissent. What could one elderly woman from a poor village possibly do? Well, as it turns out, she could do everything.
And that brings us to the day itself, September 29th, 1942, the day Matangini Hazra walked straight into the history books.
Okay, picture this. That morning, 6,000 people, mostly unarmed peasants, gather for a march. And who's at the very front, leading them all? Matangini Hazra. Their goal? The Tamluk police station, the biggest symbol of British power in their town. When they get there, the police form a line, ordering them to stop, yelling about Section 144. And the crowd? They hesitate. But Matangini, she doesn't even flinch. She just keeps walking forward.
What happened next is just a testament to her incredible will. The police fired. The first bullet hit her in the hand, the one holding the flag. But she didn't fall. Nope, she just switched the flag to her other hand and kept on walking. So they shot her again, this time hitting her other hand. Still, she clutched the flagpole with both of her bleeding hands and kept urging the crowd to move forward. The third bullet was the one that killed her.
She fell and died right there, on the steps of the police station. But even in death, her hands were clenched around the Indian flag, holding it up. It never touched the ground.
But her story doesn't end there. Her sacrifice lit a fire that couldn't be put out, and that's where her real legacy began.
The people who were there that day, they all said that as she fell, she was chanting her final words, Vande Mataram. It means, I praise thee, motherland, a final, defiant cry for a freedom she would never get to see.
Over time, she became known affectionately as Gandhi Buri, which means the old lady Gandhi. And while that name shows a ton of respect, it's so important to remember her for who she was. She wasn't just a shadow of another leader. She was her own person, her own force, a uniquely powerful flame of resistance from Bengal.
So at the end of the day, why does her story still matter so much? Because it's this incredible lesson in grassroots power. It shows that big movements aren't just led by famous names. They're built by ordinary people with the most extraordinary courage. Her defiance, walking straight into those bullets, it's just this timeless symbol of the human spirit's fight for freedom.
And that kind of leaves us with one final thought. Her story was almost lost to time, known mostly just in her home region. It really makes you wonder, how does a nation truly remember its forgotten heroes? The ones who gave absolutely everything, but whose names aren't in every single textbook?